Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Hobby News Daily. I am joined by my friend Jeremy Lee. What's going on, Jeremy?
Hey, Danny. Happy to join you here on a nice Thursday afternoon.
I know we should be doing something important, but instead we've got big time sponsorships. So, I'd like to announce that we now are sponsored by Tim Hortons and Coca Cola,
Thank you. Thank you,
and we're
Tim.
consistent with the colors, by the way, which
Yeah,
I think was important.
very good. Shades of red.
This is the caffeine edition of Hobby News Daily.
Delicious.
Uh, so how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you. 2024 is upon us. And I'm not a New Year's resolution kind of guy, Danny. I have nothing against them, of course. I just kind of look at it as, it's a fresh new year. It's a blank slate for many different things in our lives, for, whether it's taking care of your health, your eating habits, your collection, whatever it is. I'm excited for the new year.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny if you think about it. There's no reason in July I shouldn't try to lose weight.
No.
But something about January 1st is it's like, all right, this is the year. No, this is probably not going to be the year. But
well, the problem is though, if you only stick to January 1st and you don't do it, then it's like, well, now a whole year has to go by before you can make your second attempt. That's why July is as good of a time as any to make these positive changes in our lives.
Well, I'm going to have you back on July 1st and we'll do our summer resolutions.
Okay, good.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, and we've talked a bunch of times, is really as a content creator, some of the, I don't want to say challenges, but what you go through to, make the content you do for as long as you have and to keep producing quality shows. How many years have you actually been doing this?
Like almost 4 years now. Yeah.
It's like dog years, by the way, in the content creating world.
It's gone by so fast.
And how many days a week are you now doing something?
3 plus, pretty much at least 3 days a week. I've got a show. Saturday, Sunday, Monday is pretty fixed. And then the odd time I got a Thursday or a Tuesday or a Friday. It just depends on the various, collaborators I have. And of course, the sort of custom shows I do for some of the companies in our space.
And then, of course, when you're a guest and, your friend says on a Thursday afternoon, you want to come on and talk. So you appreciate it. I'm always curious because I have an issue when I do content creation when the news cycle just seems to be, everybody's doing the same story. When every content creator is commenting on the same thing, there's not really an original opinion, that I have. I may not even be real vested in the story. It's just big news. Do you ever have those moments where you find yourself, having to talk about something you don't really care about?
I mean, no, you know what? I don't, but here's why, Danny, because I do see or catch wind of other people in the hobby saying, Jeremy, why aren't you talking about this? Or why aren't other people talking about this or that? Well, maybe I don't care about it. Maybe it's not in my purview of the hobby. I guess I'm not a news aggregator. I'm not a daily news headline deliverer. We've got a lot of guys that do a great job of doing that in the hobby, and I tune into some of them, including Hobby News Daily, to get, and Hobby Hotline, and right to keep up on the current issues. But most of the current issues have to do with current product, and I am not a consumer of current product. So if there's
Great point.
2 1-of-1 superfractors in a product, or there's a new Tom Brady Montreal Expos autograph coming out, like I care because I care about the hobby and the overall health of this hobby, but it's not something that I'm collecting, not something I'm interested in. There's enough guys out there that are bringing you these topics and sharing their opinions on them. Like you, Danny, I don't really have a unique opinion on a lot of these things. They're not about topics within the hobby that I am personally passionate about. You want to talk to me about the difference between 51 Parkhurst and 54 Tops, or 51 Bowman and 52 Tops, all day long, I'll have that conversation. You want to talk about eye appeal on a sports card, vintage, love it. But you want to talk about the mistakes happening at card companies, like we got guys covering it. They do a great job. So the only time it comes up really is if I have a guest. I'm my Sports Cards live show, my Saturday night interview show, Danny.
Yep.
That's when sometimes these topics come up, but it's mostly based on the guest. If the guest has an opinion or wants to share something and the chat asks the question, then the guest will talk about it a bit. I might share what I know, but oftentimes I don't know enough about the topic because I'm not taking the time to research it because I just don't care enough about that topic. It's not what makes me happy and to be in the hobby. So yeah,
it's a great way to phrase the answer there. A lot classier than mine of just not liking to talk about it. I do shows like a Hobby Hotline where we do cover these topics. And one of the reasons, and you touched on this, is we have a live chat room. And so I'm curious from your perspective, because you've done all types of content creation. You've done shows, where you've been on a panel like Hobby Hotline. You've done one-on-one interviews. You've done auctions, live chat interaction. What is your most comfort level, or where do you have the most fun? I don't know how to phrase it. What's the best for you? What do you like?
I mean, I like what I do. So my Saturday night interview show I love it because it's a conversation with a guest, whether that's an industry insider, another passionate collector, a fellow content creator, or a combination of those three. It's just enjoyable because it's a conversation and we have the chat, and the chat is always involved in my shows. So I really enjoy that. But I also love doing the auction coverage that I do. Sunday night, I do the PWCC Weekly Hockey with Josh Madigan from the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast. And we talk about 30 to 50 cards. And I love it because I love the cards. And sometimes I'm bidding on them. Sometimes I have some for sale. Sometimes we're just talking about them and I'm analyzing the vintage cards, really zooming in and looking at them and trying to do some education. I love that. But then on Monday nights, I do MC Mondays Live, which is for MC Sports Cards. And they host their auctions on eBay. So for example, on Monday night, it was so much fun, Danny. There was 75 auctions they had and they all ended a minute apart. So for 75 minutes, I'm calling the action like a color commentator on a sporting event on auctions. I think it's hilarious because listen to what I just told you I'm doing, but it's a ton of fun because as these last bids come in, I get so worked up about it. Like, and another bid, oh my God, $7,000. Like I kind of lose my mind sometimes when I'm covering this but it's so much fun. And I started doing that very organically. That came about in April or March of 2021. And now it's something that I'm doing as a service for consignment sellers. And I love it. Danny, I wouldn't do content that I didn't enjoy, to answer your question very simply.
I know you love vintage cards, and we share that in common. One of the things that I love is the simplicity of the sets generally. There's no parallels, there's no second, anything like, to worry about when you're putting the set together. Do you ever collect? Are you a set collector at all?
So, I mean, growing up in the 80s, I was a set collector. The O-Pee-Chee hockey set, Fleer baseball sets. I used to buy them by the team. That's how they were sold at the card shop, my local shop. I used to buy the team sets to go for the whole. Anyway, I used to be a set collector. I'm not anymore. I have to caveat that though. There are a few sets that I do still chase, but I'm not like, oh my God, I have to complete it. It's more like a long-term project that I enjoy doing. And it's usually they're not base sets. So for example, every year in Upper Decks, the Cup Hockey, you've got the base set where the base cards are out of 249, but then there's some parallels. And one of the parallels is the patch variation, no autograph. And it's out of, well, sometimes they have autographs, but they used to be out of 10. Now they're out of 8. I collect those cards. I love them. I've got almost 400 of them in my collection going from 2005 to the current year. And that's a pursuit I can continue doing as long as they make the cup.
Are those the ones you posted on social media?
Yeah.
Those are beautiful, by the way.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of, I love going into Canva and bringing in my scans from my Dropbox folders and moving the cards around and sizing them and putting them beside each other so that I could do like an Instagram story post or a regular post. And I've got a bunch ready to go. I'm just kind of, I don't want to, inundate my account,
Right.
but yeah, I love Danny. I love these cards. I love negotiating on them. I love finding them, discovering them, buying them, anticipating them coming. They land. I pick them up at the post office. I open them up. I put them in my new holders, scan them, like file them with the others. I love the whole process. Danny, like some cards actually give you that feeling inside your belly. Some don't.
So true.
Right? And when you get that feeling in your belly, that is, I think, like that is like the drug effect of this hobby for me, like the feeling of the product. It's more than just cardboard to me. Like these things really fill a space in my life.
How comfortable are you, or were you always in being open with content creation and your passion? You seem to allow the audience to share with you, your what you go through with your collection. You seem to be very open to sharing that. Not everybody is. You seem to have a card vulnerability where you let yourself talk about, hits, misses, stuff you're trying to find, or auctions you didn't win. Did it take a while to get that comfortable with that vulnerability and that honesty?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it did. And what that makes me think of is, when I used to open up unopened product, buy a box of product, a case or whatever, and I wouldn't get any hits. Or I'd get skunked. I just spent $1,000. I got $150 worth of stuff, nothing I want. I wasn't the person who would be wanting to go take pictures and put them up on a message board and advertise my lack of luck or the failure or the gamble that I didn't win on. That's how I look at unopened product. So I stopped doing. I don't open unopened. Very rarely do I open unopened product. So I wasn't comfortable with that aspect of now I see people doing it all the time. People are always showing their successes and and I think it's important to show the failures. So you see that not every box is a winner. I think that's really important. And I wish that I would have been more confident or willing to do that in the past and not worry about other people maybe laughing at me that I lost my $1,000 or being happy that I lost my $1,000 because, screw that guy sort of thing. I wish that I would have been more open to that in the day. And I'm talking about like the mid 2000s into the early 2010s.
Before you had your Tim Hortons money.
Exactly. Yeah. Before these guys started paying the bills, which they do once in every 10 visits when my coffee is free. Right. But nowadays, I'm still I'm a little tepid about putting my wants out there. Right now, a lot of people on Instagram are showing their top 10 wants of 2020, or their top wants of 2024. I'm a little less willing to do that because I don't want cards to be held hostage. And I think that there are people out there that wait for these kind of posts. So if it's a common card, who cares? But if you're looking for something rare, I'd rather just let it appear and grab it and then share. But some cards, sometimes I'm okay with it. Sometimes, hey, like what I did with those from the 05-06 set of the cup, the patch variations, I showed, hey, these were my 8 favorites I added in 2023. If anyone has any, let me know. They're not the most highly desired cards. I'm one of few people that collect them. So I'm not too worried about that. But who knows? Maybe a couple will. Actually, I did find 4 since doing that. So that's great. But how many did I went the other way on me, if any, where someone's like, well, I'm not going to put this on. I'm not going to share this card, or who knows? But yeah, man, I mean, it's Instagram for me, never mind YouTube and my content. Instagram as a collector has we collect these things. We love them. Well, most of us do. I think, those of us that love them. And it's fun to share them with our hobby community and see other people, kind of give you those likes because, it's sort of affirming what you like. And not that I need anyone to like what I like, but it's nice to share it. And it's nice when other people acknowledge it and encourage you on. Like I love encouraging other people to like, great pickup. Like who doesn't want to hear that when they land a card that's one of their favorites? We're social animals. I think sharing our our conkers are fun and an important part of being a social person.
Even the fact that you're willing to admit that that people might be holding onto a card if go public, that you're looking for it. That's a very honest thing. That not most content creators don't talk about that. And I don't know if you realize how unique you really are in sharing that information. And I think it's a real positive because that's what real collectors do. If I'm looking for a card and I'm hunting for it, like you said, that hunt, that search is so personal. It's when you get that card, it is that feeling in your stomach. So I love the fact that you're willing to admit that going for the card and the chase is so much more fun than maybe one Instagram post.
Yeah. Quick story on the hunt. So again, the 0506 Cup base patch variations is kind of like my favorite of all the years I collected. It's the first one. And I didn't have the Curtis Joseph goaltender. So I knew there's a Curtis Joseph collector. She's got an account on Instagram. Her name's Connie. I've known her for years. So I messaged her. I texted her. I said, hey, Connie, do you have a Cujo patch from 0506 Cup? She's like, I do, but it's, I've got all the Joseph cards from that year, so I'm not willing to trade it. But I had another one that I sold to Jeffrey several years ago. I'm like, all right, thanks for the lead. I text Jeffrey Griffith, big Gretzky collector. Jeffrey, Connie told me she sold you a Cujo card, 0506 Cup base. Any chance you still have it, you'd be willing to let it go? And I sent him a picture of all the cards I have in the set. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, I bought that because I was anticipating him going in the Hall of Fame. He's working on a Hall of Fame project. He's not in yet. I could replace with another Coyotes mem card. So sure, I'll sell it to you. Just whatever you think is fair. All right. Here's what I think is fair. It's on its way to me now. So it was funny. Like the community works in funny ways sometimes where I knew of a collector of this player. Maybe she has the card. She does, but she's not going to sell. But she had another copy she sold 6 years ago. I think I remember who I sold it to. She remembers, tells me, I reach out, and now I'm getting the card. Like that's a kind of a fun little chase.
But that's our community. I don't think our community is truly online. I think a small percentage of hobby collectors are actually online. I think most collectors do their own collecting, and when you have that network of people, that is a cool story.
Well, you're right, and I mean, there's a lot. I'm noticing more and more. Instagram isn't, I love the community on Instagram. There are some people I think that feel like Instagram is the hub of the hobby. I don't think it is. I think it's a hub, but I don't think it's the hub. And we see a lot of people putting up polls, Instagram polls, to try and do some research or get a pulse on a certain topic or issue in the hobby. And first of all, your results of your polls are going to be skewed by your followers, because if you're a basketball guy, you're mostly likely going to have basketball followers. And if you're asking a question about something, you have to be really careful how you interpret poll data on Instagram. It's not very scientific. But my point is, I think you're right that Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, I think if you add them all up, we have a good portion of the hobby, whether that's 10% or 80%. I don't know. Somewhere in between, probably, right?
Yeah.
Maybe higher, maybe north of 10. I don't know. But each of these communities in their own little vacuums they're awesome in their own ways, but they're just a slice of the overall picture.
I find a show maybe the most enjoyable way to interact and to buy, sell, and trade. It's just so many cards in a room. Everybody's there literally to buy, sell, and trade. I mean, that's the only thing. You don't have to convince people, to let go of a card if it's in their case. What's your? I mean, I know you do a lot online and a lot of other stuff. Is show still your favorite?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Because easily, and there's not even a close second. Okay, online, it's either right. That's your other, auction platforms, eBay, PWCC, that kind of thing. Doing deals directly on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I've done some on all the platforms. They're great when you know the person, but if you don't know the person, it could be a little bit, it could be nerve-wracking, right? but shows is the best because number one, you can pick up and you can like you can do this, really inspect the card. You can if you have one, you can pull out your loop and really have a look at those corners and that kind of thing. So there's that benefit, but even more important, or as important, is that face to face. It's not just words on a screen. So there, where you might not hear the tone, right? You might not detect the tone, any sarcasm. It's like I could walk up to your table, Danny, at a card show and say, let me start. I could send you a message and say your prices are crazy, and you're like, well, this guy's a jerk. Block. I could walk up to your booth and I say your prices are crazy,
Right.
and you're like, okay, this guy's having fun, right? Same words, but there's no tone. There's no tone really unless you're adding smileys, which helps sometimes. But in person, I think you can just really forge a relationship, and that will help make a deal happen.
Without a doubt. My favorite story, one of my favorites, is I love flipping coins. When you get down to a negotiation, for anybody watching, if you're $50 apart, $100 apart, whatever it is, and at a certain point, it's just pride for everybody. It's not the money. Pull out a quarter, flip it heads or tails, take a side. It is the most fun you'll have buying a card. And even if you lose, it's a good time. And I'm telling you, I have flipped for that last $100 more times than I can count. And always pick heads.
Always pick heads. That's right. Yeah. Nice.
So what's your show schedule coming up? Do you have shows coming up?
Yeah. So Saturday night, my I call it my flagship show. I know that's a big word, but only because I do other shows throughout the week, right? But that's my main show, and it's just called Sports Cards Live, as you know, and that's the interview show. So I have my guest. I always have a guest. My guest on Saturday, which is the 6th of January, is his name is Rex Morgart, and he's a vintage sealed product collector.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's into like you can see this vending machine right there.
Yeah.
There. He's like, that's an original vending machine that I have. He's got like 5 of these things, different kinds from different eras. So he's got unopened product, both sport and some non-sport, but he's a sport guy mostly. And I love the unopened product world. I have a collection of unopened sealed packs myself. They're all slabbed. Love them. And so it's gonna be a nice collector centric type episode on Saturday, talking about the ins and outs, the nuances of collecting unopened product and what grinds those guys' gears. Like what, we know what you don't hear a lot about it because it's a niche within a niche, but it's going to be a fun episode. Sunday night will be the PWCC weekly hockey auction coverage, and Monday night, actually, we're not doing an MC Mondays live this Monday. We'll be back the Monday after. So that's what's on the slate right away here.
Well, you just brought everything full circle because your enthusiasm for that interview answers my very first question about, what gets you going and what do you like to do in the hobby. So it's very clear that actually product and people for you, the actual connections are important.
When I'm at a card show, one of the things that I love most being at a card show and being as a vendor, when people come up and I don't know them, and you want to kind of, I like to have a conversation with people. I don't just sit there and wait for them to say something. One of the things I like to ask people is like, what do you? It's not so much what do you collect, but more how do you approach the hobby? Like, I want to learn. You can tell me, I collect Ryan Sandberg. Okay, great. But how do you approach that? Like, are you like, is it as big of a part of your life as it is mine? Are you casual? I want to get to know what the hobby means to you and what kind of a part it plays in your life, as well as what cards you collect and who you collect and why. Like, I like to learn. There's a million. There's an infinite amount of ways to approach our hobby, and that's what makes it so cool. Like, no two collectors are exactly the same, and I just think that's fascinating. And you know what, Danny, you also asked earlier, like, how do you keep doing your content with kind of the news cycle repeating and everyone talking about the same thing? Well, every collector is different. So every guest I have on the show is fresh, brand new content because we're meeting a new person. We're asking them questions. We're finding out how they approach the hobby. And hopefully hopefully they leave everybody who's watching or listening one little nugget that either inspires them or opens their eyes to another way of looking at things. And that's when I know that I've had a good show.
So cool. So that is Saturday live.
Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern, every Saturday 10 p.m. Eastern, Sports Cards Live.
But live chat, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a big part of the show. I want people to know that.
It's a huge part of the show. My show is like, it's me and the guest, but the chat is the third person on there because, as I say before I bring out every guest, like, all right, let's bring them out. And as always, your comments and your questions are in play. And, I get to probably 80% of the comments that come through. I bring them on the screen and we address them. And I feel like I know the regular viewers. I got a pretty loyal audience, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. And then when I get to meet them in person at shows, it's like, oh, so you're that guy whose name I've said a million times in the last 2 years.
Yes. It's so true. I do a show with John Newman called Card Menches, and we have a great. You've Card Menches. You've been a mensch. You are a mensch. The chat room there is fantastic. And that's when I realized that I like that format.
Yeah.
I really enjoy interacting. So it's interesting to hear after doing however many episodes you've done over the years, the guests keeping it fresh and using the chat room is something that I'm thinking about taking this show live more.
Live is I only do live streams, Danny. I don't do any pre-recorded stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know any different.
Well, I don't edit, but sometimes like you and I can do on a Thursday afternoon. That's not going to be a great time to do a live show.
No.
So that's one of the things I want to figure out. But I think the chat room for Hobby News Daily would be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
So.
You don't need it all. Yeah, you don't need it all the time, right? So there's kind of pre-recorded podcasts are the way of the world for the most part. I think live stuff is a smaller portion of the overall content, and there's I think a place for all of it. I just think it's funny that I've never done a pre-recorded pod except when I'm on someone else's show, which I really enjoy. By the way, thank you for having me.
No, absolutely, and thank you for coming on as always. You're such you're such a mensch about it. But I don't edit, so for everybody watching this, there's no CGI. There's no stunt doubles. This is all really us. So, just want to make that clear. All right, my friend. Well, I have a rule to get out in under 30. Even though with you, I could do probably 6 parts of this. But I want to say thank you. Everybody tune in to the man, Jeremy Lee, 3, 4, 5 nights a week on everybody's shows, including his own. But Saturday night, you got to check out Sports Card Live. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Danny.
Absolutely. All right, everybody else, tune into Hobby News Daily and make sure you read hobbynewsdaily.com every day. We'll see you later.